The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Please allow me to adjust my pants so that I may dance the good time dance and put the onlookers and innocent bystanders into a trance.
Welcome, fight fans, to Inside Fighting Radio with your host, Scott the Cube Lewis, Coach George Adamia, and Kenneth the Paparazzi Henrati, bringing the latest fight news, analysis, and interviews from around the world. Fight fans, are you ready? It is now time for Inside Fighting Radio with your hosts, Scott, George, and Kenneth. That's right, fight fans. Welcome to Inside Fighting Radio right here on W4CY.com and available at iHeartRadio. I am the host, The Cube, Scott Lewis, alongside my co-hosts, Coach George Adamia and Kenneth, the Paparazzi Henrati. How you doing today, gentlemen?
Good, man.
What do you say,
Great,
Cube?
wonderful.
What do you say?
You know, it's a banner day for Inside Fighting Radio. We've got one heck of a lineup today. As always, we've got King Mo, who's going to be joining us. He's going to be fighting Ryan Bader May 12th in the Bellator Heavyweight Grand Prix. Now, this past weekend, we'll talk about in a little bit, an incredible Bellator Grand Prix heavyweight matchup between Fedor versus Frank Mir, former Pride heavyweight champion, and the GOAT, the greatest of all time heavyweight, Fedor, who's had a rough time in the Bellator cage and you know, even in the Strikeforce cage before that, right? So, you know, he got away from Pride and that mystique started to kind of go away, but this past weekend in Bellator, the mystique was back. It was absolutely incredible, and he was victorious over Frank Mir, and King Mo is next up May 12th, taking on Ryan Bader. But right here today, he'll be joining us on Inside Fighting Radio. In addition to King Mo, we've got Durinho, Gilbert Burns, rising UFC lightweight, joining us right here on the show.
Local boy.
Big time, hitting the big time, boy.
Yeah, you know what? Listen, we are a local show with an international appeal, my friend Paparazzi.
That's
so,
right.
you know, we are based out of Wellington, Florida. In addition to the good news today, got good news. David Lockett, the head of the public relations for the UFC, contacted me, and they're bringing none other than Ronaldo Jacare Souza to the studio here at W4CY.com tomorrow, and that will be our interview for next week as well. And then the very next day, we're going to American Top Team out at Coconut Creek, and we're going to be interviewing Amanda Nunes.
Wow.
The women's bantamweight champion. We're also going to be interviewing Colby Covington and a whole host of others. So, great.
Lioness.
Yeah, it's good stuff, man. A lot going
down.
on. And once again, this is Inside Fighting Radio presented by Phoenix Fight Gear. You go to phoenixfightgear.com. Go ahead and put in IFR20. That's IFR for Inside Fighting Radio. IFR20 in the code, and you're getting 20% off all your Phoenix Fight Gear products, courtesy of your friends here at Inside Fighting Radio. Pretty cool.
What more
Very
did
cool.
you ask for?
Well, you know,
I like the picture that you posted on the about Phoenix Fight Gear and me and Chris on the
the picture of you and Chris.
the picture of Chris and I.
Chris and I, thank you for correcting my English. You know, as a journalism major, English major, you'd think I'd get this, but I really prided myself on my editing, which allows me to go back and fix any mistakes I made. So good job of editing for me there.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. So
Chris and I
was just talking
Nice.
about the media package the kit you put together this weekend.
Our executive producer put together, and
Yes,
it's a pretty awesome
that's
media
right,
kit.
that's right.
And once again, anybody looking for some sponsorship opportunities, event opportunities, you want to have us blow it up for you, you just contact us, InsideFightingRadio.com. We got some contact information on there as well. Yeah, we touched on it briefly this past weekend, Bellator. And listen, the Grand Prix heavyweight tournament, it's something that Scott Coker has done before with Strikeforce.
Yeah.
And had great success. And it basically emulated the great Grand Prix from Pride from yesteryear. The glory days of Pride. Pride never die. And basically, they've brought it back. And if there's one thing, and it's on MMAJunkie.com, I just saw it right now, but I had every intention of talking about this. So, you know, kudos to them for bringing up a great point. If there is one thing that can cure the ails of the MMA scene, if you will, right now, it is the tournament.
Oh, yeah.
The tournament.
The original.
Number one, there's that appeal beyond just another fight. It's not just another fight. You're moving on to the next round. And you've got a chance to become the dominant, the preeminent person in that weight class when you win that tournament. And it just makes everything
And a big
feel
paycheck too, right?
Huge paycheck. And
wow.
It just makes everything feel that much bigger. And, don't want to be the one to kind of throw it out there, but there haven't been a lot of big UFC fights recently. Not a lot of big name, money-moving, seat-filling fights.
Right.
And this tournament...
they're talking about it. Everybody's talking about it. And
what Fedor did was spectacular.
It's the old Fedor's back.
It was the old Fedor. It was kind of hard not to get excited about it. And the crowd in San Jose, and listen, Scott Coker, Bellator, they've been running shows in San Jose for years and years and years. I've been a part of them, working alongside Joe Diesel Riggs when he was part of Strikeforce. Strikeforce, and then also later Bellator. These guys know what they're doing when it comes to running big events. And Fedor, let's focus on him for a minute. Fedor is a guy that's always been known for his quick hands, explosiveness. But again, we saw it against Bigfoot Silva. We've seen it other times. Mitrione got caught by the punch against Mitrione, went out. And Frank Mir is a guy who's done a lot of damage in the sport. Former champion of the world, the UFC. He's taken out some big names. It took the arm of Antonio Rodrigo Nogueira and then also knocked him out, by the way. He does it all, right? And this looked like a fight to me. We talked about it briefly here on Inside Fighting Radio previously. I didn't have the belief in the great Fedor anymore. I'll admit it.
The stats
spoke.
Exactly. The stats didn't really help either.
Blasphemy on my part.
How
dare I question the last emperor? And you know what? Good for him, because Fedor is one of those true icons in a sport that doesn't have a lot of them remaining. And he is incredible. And it was incredible to watch, an incredible scene. And Bellator definitely won on this night.
So who do you guys have now? Isn't he going to be fighting Chael Sonnen? Isn't it Fedor versus Chael Sonnen coming up? Who's your pick, guys?
Well, interestingly enough, they asked Chael Sonnen while he was commentating, because that was kind of the interesting part, is John McCarthy's commentating alongside Chael Sonnen, and Chael Sonnen's watching this fight.
Yeah.
And he asked him, who do you want to see win this fight? And I don't know if this was an answer based off of the money, right? Because Chael Sonnen's all about that money. He said, hey, I'd rather see Fedor win this fight, but he felt Mir would be too big for him.
Yeah.
I don't care who Sonnen was going to fight. I don't think it was a good matchup either way. Frank Mir is too big for Sonnen, and Fedor is too explosive for Sonnen. I think it's going to be a bad night for Sonnen. Either way, it was going to break down, but now that we know it's Fedor, I think it's going to be Fedor. But that said, Chael Sonnen is a great wrestler. Chael Sonnen has put people on their back, nullified their game, and we all know that Fedor is, there is holes in the game. He's got great sambo, but he's not a great wrestler per se. Could Sonnen put him on his back? This isn't the Fedor from yesteryear, even though he was spectacular against Mir. So it's a good matchup, but the smart betting man would put their money, I would think, on the great Fedor. What about you, Coach George?
Well, I'm going to have to side with Fedor after that performance. I mean, it was just like seeing
That's
Fedor.
it, just after that performance, not all the other ones from Pride. And
in his prime. It was reminiscent of his prime. I mean, when he threw that Harai Goshi, which was that throw that he did with the leg outside of the hip and flipped him over on the ground. And I mean, it was just so amazing. It was so textbook. It was like, I couldn't believe it. So I'm going to have to go with Fedor, especially against Sonnen, who I think he has some advantages over.
And this was just 48 seconds into the fight, where the fight came to the end. And like you said, with that beautiful judo throw that Fedor landed, it put Mir right on his back early.
It was sick.
But Mir also, dropped Fedor early in that 48
he
seconds.
Landed some nice punches.
You're talking about a 48 seconds that, once again, with the heavyweights, that's the X factor. You put on those 4-ounce gloves, and the big guys land the bombs. And that's exactly what happened. And again, you look at this tournament, and now you've got King Mo, who we expect to have here on our show here coming up. King Mo taking on Ryan Bader. And that's a matchup where you have two of the top 205 guys in the world fighting each other basically for a spot to move on in that Grand Prix tournament. That's an intriguing matchup. Mitrione moved on barely against Nelson. He's a guy that's going to be tough to deal with. So that heavyweight tournament, very intriguing. And again, Fedor, spectacular performance. I don't know who's going to take him at this point right now, looking as good as he did. So should be some great matchups. And again, I don't think Sonnen's the guy that puts Fedor right into the finals, because that is the semifinal matchup.
Yeah.
So I have a stupid question.
That's okay. We have some stupid answers for you, paparazzi.
So these guys are all going to come up to the heavyweight weight class?
So
Chael Sonnen is going to come up to 225 and higher?
So Chael Sonnen has already won his opening round heavyweight Grand Prix matchup over Rampage. Both Rampage, Sonnen were in that first round opening round match. This is an open weight at the heavyweight division. So, as you know, once you get over 205, 206 with the 1 pound weight allowance, there's only the heavyweight division. It's really wild if you think about it. You start from the lighter weights, everything's like 10 pounds, right? And then you got the next division. Then it gets to 15 pounds. Then you get the next division. And it goes 20 to get the light heavyweight. But then it becomes absolutely wide open until you get to 265.
Yeah. Right.
So it becomes a really weird kind of weight class. So I think Bellator is looking at it from the old school mind thought of, hey, a fight is a fight. We're going to put fighter A versus fighter B. And they kind of love the spectacle sideshow, that the old school pride mentality, right? And Scott Coker's got that. He understands what sells. And he realizes that a guy at 200 pounds is perfectly capable of beating a guy at 265 pounds. Now, is the guy at 200 pounds a disadvantage? Absolutely.
Right.
But is the guy at 265 in a disadvantage versus a 200-pounder who's quicker?
Sure.
Who has, might have the quicker feet, quicker hands, the whole different kind of game. That heavyweight's not used to dealing with the speed of the light heavyweight. So, again, when you look at a guy like a Chael Sonnen who took on a little heavier Rampage was not in great shape for that fight. Sonnen was able to nullify him, put him on his back, kind of like he did versus Vanderlei Silva. And, he's not the big heavyweight, but he's got great wrestling.
Right.
And he's taken down big guys before. And in the wrestling game, if you can control the wrestling, you can control the fight.
Huge factor.
So it's interesting. And again, it creates interest because you see matchups that you just wouldn't normally see. You don't get to see Bader versus Fedor, potentially. You don't get to see King Mo versus Fedor. And these are fights that are lining up to where, you're one win away, and that's what you got. So, some great stuff coming out of Bellator. And listen, it was a great night of fights in general. Every single fight on the main card leading up to it was a submission. And then the main event ends in a knockout. So as a fan, as a person in attendance, because that was a packed, loud, rocking crowd that night, it was a great show. So Dylan Dennis,
I saw that.
People who may familiar with that name, Conor McGregor's training partner, a person who worked with him on his jiu-jitsu, incredibly confident young man, said some of the most ridiculous things that I think I've ever heard a fighter say post-fight. And I've heard some ridiculous things. So he basically said that the entire crowd, and listen, let's get first to his submission, which was beautiful, toe hold, looked like he nearly snapped the ankle of Kyle Walker. So beautiful submission, beautiful toe hold, did everything he said he was going to do. But my goodness, this guy believes that he sold out that arena.
He was tooting his own horn quite a bit.
He said that nobody else did the media he did. Nobody else is there for anybody but him.
Yeah.
And he said it not once, not twice, but he said it backstage also when he was done. They did backstage interview with him. And he basically said, I put this whole show on my back. And I'm thinking, Fedor? Fedor? Anyone? Fedor? I mean, you put the show on your back? I don't even get it. I don't even understand where he's coming from. I mean, yes, you did the media. Great. Good job, Dylan Dennis. You did your job. But you think people came to see you and not Fedor? I think that dude's missing the boat. I mean, I get he's coming from the school of Conor McGregor.
Yeah,
he's got the confidence game.
That's what it is.
That's what it is.
That's exactly what it is.
He's talking himself up. We get it, right?
Yep.
You're ridiculous, friend. You're a great fighter, but you are ridiculous.
You got to be careful because you can alienate a lot of fans that way. When you're in that position, you say something like that, you could alienate a lot of fans.
Well, it's a combination between wishful thinking and visualization. That's probably what he's trying to pull off.
And his wishful thinking and visualization obviously is helping him. The guy is a very talented mixed martial artist and jiu-jitsu player. The guy is special. He says, I'm on a different level, and he shows it. And that toe hold was nasty. It was a beautiful transition.
I will say, he pulled guard, and that's uncommon in MMA, even with a very experienced grappler.
That can get you hurt.
It's a huge risk. And against somebody that's really good at ground and pound, going up the roster, fighting more experienced, high-level guys, you're not going to be able to get away with potentially doing that all the time. Look at how Damian Maia, look at these high-level jiu-jitsu practitioners.
Anderson Silva pulled guard a couple times.
He did.
But is he at the level of an Anderson Silva?
No. Listen, I mean, you're talking about one of the greatest fighters of all time and you're comparing him to a guy who's brand new in the game, Dylan Dennis. So
he's 1-0
the answer
now.
would be no.
He's just had his first pro fight.
He's nothing like Anderson Silva.
Well, I think he was talking about his jiu-jitsu because Dennis he's a well-versed jiu-jitsu player.
Which, again, attesting to what Coach George is saying, you have a guy who's got such great jiu-jitsu, he has a confidence in it to pull guard, but when you play the MMA game and you go to pull guard, you're going to take beatings. You're going to take beatings. That's what the elbows, they say, the classic tale is you punch the black belt in his face, he becomes a brown belt, then he becomes a purple belt, you punch him again, right? And so on and so forth. You got to train
for that, yeah.
It changes the game. So when you start pulling guard early in your fight, you're putting yourself into a tough position. Yes, it's your strong point, but now you're also at a disadvantage when it comes to taking shots, blows, and damage. So, again, I think Coach George is saying it perfectly. You get why he pulled guard. His jiu-jitsu is that good, and he showed it's that good. But you keep rising up in level, and you're going to have more and more problems that you're going to have and challenges that you're going to have to overcome.
Yeah, I will say, when you're playing your game, a jiu-jitsu game in MMA, you want to stay on top. Ideally, you would maintain top position, control the guy, and make him make those mistakes that would lead to probably the best possible is the rear naked choke. That's the king of all chokes. It's the king of all moves, mate leon, which means kill the lion. That's how powerful it is.
And so, this isn't the Gracie fights of the early 90s. No disrespect to Neiman Gracie, who fought on this night and also was victorious with a submission. So we had a Gracie fighter on the show. But, Dylan Dennis is a talented guy, just like Neiman Gracie. But if your game is pulling guard, you're going to have a tough time in MMA.
Look at Lovato, Rafael Lovato. What an amazing fight that he had, really proving, himself in all of his recent fights.
Well, listen, the guy he took out is no slouch. You're talking about Gerald Harris, the suplex machine. He has 4 knockouts by suplex, slam.
Love the suplex.
He's got a slam that knocks people out like nobody else. It's like the old Rampage, slamming people, knocking them out. Gerald Harris was on a 4-fight winning streak. He was 25-5 coming into that fight with Rafael Lovato. But Rafael Lovato is a special fighter. And kind of like with Dylan Dennis, where he said, I'm on a different level, Rafael Lovato said the same thing. I feel like I'm on a different level when that fight goes to the ground, and he showed it. It's a great point, Coach George. I think it's a guy you have to watch for. He is a future champion in Bellator.
He's going to get that title shot. He's going to be getting that title shot here very soon, and so I'll be looking forward to watching that fight. But comparing Rafael Lovato to Dylan Dennis, I think Lovato just showed more control and dominance, whereas with Dennis, things were kind of on the fly, loose, and there could have been an opportunity where he got caught. And, he's getting that experience. It's just his first pro fight.
Pro debut.
No doubt he's going to get better. He's got an amazing camp training with Conor McGregor's camp, right? So
absolutely. You're training with one of the great strikers. So, of course, you're going to give him his jiu-jitsu, but you're going to get pieces from him as well, especially as you continue in the game of MMA, as you are going to see from Dylan Dennis, no question about it. And Rafael Lovato Jr., another guy, again, a future champion in Bellator, in my opinion. That's how impressive he is. We have Gilbert Burns coming on the show here shortly, and to me, he's kind of like a Burns, if you will. He's got the ability to take people out on the ground. He's got some stand up to him, and he's got a lot of poise and confidence in that cage.
Look at that recent knockout that he had. I really loved seeing his striking, and obviously his boxing, his striking has been evolving. He's been training at the Hard Knocks 365 with Henry Hooft and all those guys. So it's amazing seeing jiu-jitsu guys develop their striking and see them go far, man.
And the last submission prior to the big victory by Fedor over Frank Mir, another spectacular sub. Emmanuel Sanchez taking out former UFC fighter Sam Sicilia with a standing head and arm triangle choke.
I saw that too. That was awesome.
You don't see that very often. You don't see that.
You don't. He set it up perfectly, man, and it's one of those things.
He did like a little shuck by, right? When they were in that like clinch position, he shucked them by, and then he just caught that little head and arm triangle.
And then you could fall to the ground and finish it on the ground.
Which is what he did. Once he fell to the ground, he fell onto his back, but kind of took the side angle.
Yeah.
Wrapped the legs around them.
I love it.
And that was
Sometimes you do that from close guard, too. I love that choke. That's awesome.
It was a wrap.
That was awesome. Those sick, great submissions. I mean, look at all these finishes, man. Bellator. Look at that. Take that, UFC.
Yeah, listen. We've talked about it. There's so many UFC fights right now. There's just so many UFC fights that they don't really build the stars. And so when you see Bellator do things like this, you can see how there's potential for them to continue to grow as an organization. Are they ever going to overtake UFC? That remains to be seen. but they're definitely doing the right things right now. They're absolutely doing the right things. No doubt about it. And remember, once again, Inside Fighting Radio presented by Phoenix Fight Gear. You go to phoenixfightgear.com, put in IFR20. That's IFR for Inside Fighting Radio, and you will get 20% off your Phoenix Fight Gear, courtesy of your friends here at Inside Fighting Radio. And right now on Inside Fighting Radio, we are joined by rising UFC lightweight Gilbert Durinho Burns. How you doing today, Gilbert?
Good, brother. How you doing, bro?
Good. We got Coach George and Kenneth the Paparazzi Henrati here, and of course myself, Scott the Cube. Really appreciate you taking the time. And let's first start out with the beautiful knockout win over Dan Moret at the UFC a couple of weeks ago. Take us back to that night, and how good did that feel to come away with the knockout win?
Man, that feel great. I think that night, man, was kind of special because the way everything worked out. I supposed to fight on the card here in Florida in Orlando, but the commission, the UFC, they canceled my fight. I had the issue with the weight. I know I could make it weight, but I respect the UFC, so they ended up giving another opponent. So supposed to be Lando Vanata. I had my contract signed to fight Lando Vanata, but 3 weeks out, he pulled out of the fight. So I was kind of training, but I didn't know if I'm going to have an opponent or not, if I'm going to fight or not, so I just keep pushing, keep training, and eventually they put Dan Moret in front of me, and then, bro, I was ready to fight since February, so there was a lot of relief going to that fight. I was super ready to fight, and that was man, I kind of felt a little bit. First round, I was just feeling my distance, feeling the fight a little bit, but the second round, I went to the finish, and I did it on a great fashion, so I'm pretty happy with my performance.
Yeah, it was absolutely spectacular, Gilbert. Congrats on it. So, 2 fights before that, you fought Michael Prazeres, and you lost a tough decision. They always say you learn more from the loss than you do from the win, and you're showing that. You knocked out Jason Sago, a beautiful knockout there. Now you knock out Dan Moret in your most recent fight. What did you take away from that loss that's changed you? Because everybody knows what kind of submission game you have, Gilbert. Multiple-time world champion, but you're putting hands on people and you're putting them out. What did you learn from that loss that's kind of led to this?
Man, I learned a lot. I did a lot of changes after that fight. I started doing like mental coach. I have a mental coach from Brazil. Just right after that fight, I changed my manager. Now I'm the Ali Abdulaziz at Dominance MMA. I changed so much. I changed my conditioning too. I'm doing conditioning at IADP with Juan Santana here in Boca, and I started doing a little boxing too and believing more in my kickboxing, my transition. But I changed so much things after that fight. It was kind of like, it was a lot of learning. I learned so much on that loss. I had that feeling that I knew I could beat the guy, but I did enough to deserve that win. So it was just like, it was a big learning, bro. A lot of different things. I may change a lot of things on my training, my life since that loss, and now I can see like how much better I'm getting. And it's just started. Still have a lot to go.
And obviously 2 spectacular knockout wins like that, and the pedigree that you brought in prior to that, you put yourself right there, on the cusp of contention, if you will. What's next for Gilbert Burns? What do you want next? Any talks with the UFC yet? What's on the horizon?
So we're talking about going to 170 right now to fight Neil Magny. I just heard that Gunnar Nelson is out of the fight due to a knee injury.
Yep.
So I'm just asking for that fight. We're still waiting the answer. Should be know something by tomorrow, but I'm ready to step up. I'm big 155. I can make 170 super easy. And let's see. I'm begging to Sean Shell to give him that fight. So I'm just on hold. I'm training already and waiting for that. If that happens, that would be amazing. That's like I'm putting a lot of energy on that, hoping to get that fight. If not, July will be good for me. But I'm really looking forward to fight Neil Magny right now at 170 at UFC Liverpool.
Yeah, Neil Magny versus Gilbert Burns, that's a fight you definitely want to watch. And at 170, are you comfortable at 170? Obviously, it's the weight cuts. You talked about it before. It's not the easiest thing in the world. And obviously get to kind of fight more at your walking around weight. Are you looking forward to potentially fighting 170? Do you think it's something you'll be able to handle well with the weight?
For sure, I can fight 170. I'm just thinking I have so much to do at 155. I'll be so strong. But for short notes, for sure I can make 170. I really can beat Neil Magny. That's why I asked for. When I see guys at 170 ask for a fight, I always put myself in. But coming from that 2 knockouts, I think my name is already there. And I just ask, I hope they give me that fight because, man, just told already, I'm a big, very big 55. I can make a weight, I can make it 55. But, bro, gotta go straight on the diet for like 6 weeks. Like training hard, no injury. Gotta do a lot of physical therapy, a lot of things just to make sure I don't get injured during the process. I can make. It's hard, but I can make it. But 170, bro, I'll be right there. I'm 185 right now. Just that 15 pounds, just easy. Man, I want to put a performance if they give me that fight.
And once again, we are talking to rising UFC lightweight and potentially welterweight Gilbert Durinho Burns. Gilbert, I was speaking to one of my employees at Title Boxing Club, David Troach. You gave him his brown belt the other day. I thought that was a pretty amazing, accomplishment for him. And it's always cool to see these world-class fighters like yourself giving back, right? Still teaching. I know you have your brother Herbert also who works with David, and I believe your wife as well, who's a third-degree black belt. If you can, tell us about that support system you have, your family, and coaching guys like David and giving these belts that obviously they work very hard for.
Yeah, so I'm a third-degree black belt. My brother's 2. My wife, if I'm not wrong, she's a 1 or 2. But we teach a combat club. We have our system there, like Burns, BJJ. David was one of the guys that was putting a lot of work. Bro, he almost fought last month, but he got a fight on short notice. The guy didn't make away. He got a fight on short notice. He make away. The guy didn't make away, so they canceled his fight. But the guy's a study. He's always training, putting a lot of work. He earned his belt. He did very good with the gi and no-gi competition not much ago. And we have that system over there, Combat Club here in Lantana, in Florida. I teach for the adults, most like, especially when I have fight, my brother take over. He's teaching a lot more. But I always like to go there, help with the system, help my students out. We have like class at 6 a.m., 1 p.m., 7:30 p.m. And my wife teaches all the kids. She runs the kids program. And we're doing pretty good, bro. We have a lot of kids right now. We have a lot of adults. A couple guys got promoted. We're doing good on the local tournaments. We're growing, bro. We're doing something nice right there.
And once again, you can actually train under Gilbert Durinho Burns at Combat Club in Lantana and see those world-class fighters going at it every single day. David was saying, man, you don't even know how hard Gilbert trains, and it inspires him, and I'm sure it inspires the entire gym over at Combat Club. You just mentioned your brother Herbert, and glad you corrected me also on the degree of black belts. All are impressive. Your third degree, your brother's second, your wife's first. Incredible stuff. Your brother, undefeated rising fighter himself. Tell us a little about Herbert Burns.
Bro, bro, my brother's a beast. He's kind of like I'm the hard worker, but the guy has a lot of natural skills, bro. Like, he's fighting 145. He comes from a loss. Just correct you. He's not undefeated, but he comes from a loss. But he just fought like a couple of tough guys at ONE FC. Now he's out of the contract. We're looking for a fight for him here in USA, maybe LFA. With Titan, we're looking forward to put him to fight soon. But, bro, he's a big prospect at 145. Like, big guy, long, great jiu-jitsu, very long. Know how to use that decent, getting a lot better with his hands. Man, guy's going to be a problem at 145.
I could imagine it was a problem growing up in that Burns household if you were the parents trying to separate you two. I mean, that sounds like the problem.
Yeah, and I'm the middle one. Herbert's the youngest one, and my older brother now he's a black belt as well, but he's a Navy SEAL in Brazil, bro.
Oh, wow.
So you just can see like how their family is.
Don't play with the Burns boys. Do not play with the Burns boys. Well, listen, Gilbert, we really appreciate your time, man. Thank you again for joining us here on Inside Fighting Radio. Good luck. Where can people find you on Instagram, social media? Where can they find the exploits of Gilbert Durinho Burns?
Yeah, thanks, brother. My pleasure to be here with you guys. And, bro, easy. Instagram, Gilbert_Burns. And Instagram, I have my nickname from Jiu-Jitsu, Durinho. That means, like, little tough one. Gilbert Durinho on Twitter. Just make sure you guys tune in. Hope that fight works. Fight is on work right now. Let's see what the UFC says. But I'm ready to step in. UFC Liverpool against Neil Magny. Tune in, boys. Maybe we have news on a couple of days. Let's see.
You got it. It's the potential breaking news. Gilbert Durinho Burns versus Neil Magny. We hope it happens. And again, Gilbert, thank you for joining us inside Fighting Radio. We'll have to get you back on again here soon.
Obrigado.
Thanks a lot, man.
My pleasure, Scott. Have a good one, brother.
You too. Gilbert Durinho Burns right here on Inside Fighting Radio. And then the paparazzi who maintained his silence throughout the interview, all of a sudden threw out an... What was it? I don't even want to mess it up. So what did you say?
Obrigado.
Obrigado. Which means?
Thank you in Portuguese.
There you go. Which is the native language of Brazil.
That's right.
Very cool. Awesome. Paparazzi.
That was awesome.
You just pulled that one out of the rabbit out of the hat.
You asked you asked some of the questions that I was thinking of, Scott. You picked them right out of my brain. So
well, you were close to me. So it was like the kinetic energy, and I just kept pulling from Coach George. That actually wasn't me. I was.
I didn't know he was walking around at 185.
Yeah, well, listen.
A lot of these guys
are. Listen, if you're fighting at 155, I'm going to tell you right now, you are not walking at 170. You are not
at the highest level.
At 170, at the highest level, you are not walking at 170. If you're fighting 155, you're fighting 145. If you're walking 170, if you're walking at 185, you are most likely cutting all the way down to 155, unless you get that call like Gilbert Durinho Burns just did to fight a guy that matches up well in his mind, Neil Magny. Right. And now he's looking at it going, I'll take that fight. Hey, I asked him the question, and it may have been misinterpreted. I may have missaid it. Obviously, he can make weight. It's more of how do you think you'll feel at that weight? Because usually you're cutting down, you're going to be the bigger guy. Now you'd be a little bit, not necessarily the smaller guy, but fighting more at your weight class. Whereas Neil Magny probably walks around at about 190, 195. Because he's cutting to 170. That makes sense?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because you're typically, and I've been in the room with Anthony Rumble Johnson before he fought at the Honda Center in Anaheim, California, versus Rich Clemente. He got choked out that night, and part of the reason was he had to cut 18 pounds overnight. He had to cut over 20 pounds.
So bad.
He ended up being 8 pounds over, even after his 12 plus pounds that he cut.
In one night,
I was sitting behind him with the credit card, peeling the sweat off Anthony Rumble Johnson's back as he would come out of the sauna so that he can be completely free of sweat and then walk back into the sauna. I've been at weight cuts with Joe Diesel Riggs when he fought for the UFC world title against Matt Hughes, and he missed weight by 1 pound after cutting 16 pounds in 3 days.
Wow.
So I've been involved in some of the craziest weight cuts. That Joe Diesel Riggs weight cut, you can find it on YouTube. You can find him kick the scale after the weight cut because it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen.
One freaking pound.
Well, here's what happened. I mean, just to go back many years to UFC 57, Joe Diesel Riggs versus Matt Hughes for the UFC title, you have a 1 pound weight allowance when it's not a title fight. When it is a title fight, you do not get a 1 pound weight allowance. So you have to be completely on weight or underweight. Joe Riggs was 1.3 pounds or 1/3 pounds over. So they said you have 1 hour. Well, that was the first problem, is you actually get 2 hours. That's the legal mandate. You get 2 hours to cut weight. So he comes back after cutting weight, and they told him he had now gained a 0.5 pound. And this is after we were in the sauna, working out in the sauna, getting him motivated. Like, hey, you got this. Don't worry about it, blah, blah, blah. We go back an hour later, and I actually pulled him from the sauna early because I thought he was going to cut too much, and I didn't want him to drain himself. And I knew we had, and all of a sudden they said, yeah, no, you're 0.5 pound. He went crazy. He kicked the scale. He said, this is BS. Went nuts, absolutely nuts. And Mark Ratner was the commissioner at the time. He then was like, well, you have another hour. And then I went nuts. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you tell us that at the beginning? Then we could take the full 2 hours and we're not even dealing with this now. I went back into the room just to make a long story short to try to get Joe motivated again. And he was done. He was dry as a bone. He had cut weight as much as humanly possible. I'm sitting there doing jumping jacks in the room. And I'll never forget UFC veteran Edwin DeWeese, who fought Jorge Rivera. He looks at me and he goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm trying to get him motivated. He looks at me and goes, he's done, buddy. He's done. And I'm like, okay.
Wow.
Okay. I get it.
Yeah.
You can only cut so much. But, so when you look at these guys that fight at 155 and they're cutting from 185, that's a 30-pound cut. So when you ask him, you think you can make this weight? You think you feel good? He's thinking, heck yeah, man. I only got to cut 15 pounds. I can do that with my eyes closed.
Yeah.
So
cutting weight sucks, man. If you ever had to gone through that, I actually had to lose 15 pounds in a week for a jiu-jitsu competition. And the day of the competition, I was running laps wearing a trash bag out in the parking lot. And by the time I got to compete, I was just so drained. I'd never cut that much weight in such a short amount of time before. And I'm a guy that walks around at 185. So when it comes to MMA, the smart thing for me to do would be to fight at 155. Just like Scott said, it's a lot of weight to cut. You know, I think my minimum, I mean, I've been to like 170 was like, I'm like, I don't know how much lower I can get. But a guy my size, you know, a guy my height, you know, my size, usually they fight at 155.
And for what me, are you walking around right now at?
I'm like 180, 185.
Really?
Know?
Yeah, it depends on if he spent all day on the seas sailing.
Oh yeah, right.
Or
right.
if he's
the salt water. The salt water dries you out.
Yeah. He's got the Ritz crackers and the cheese out there with the wine.
I'm actually becoming lactose intolerant, so there's no cheese going on here.
That's a whole different story.
Yeah, I'm not even dairy products. Don't even get me started. You should be.
I'm the same way.
You shouldn't be eating too much dairy anyway.
Well, we're gonna get back on track here. Well, listen, we're gonna get. We just had King Mo message that he tried calling. So he may have tried calling while we're on with Gilbert Burns. Hopefully, he gives a call back.
Okay.
But there's some crazy news coming out of the Florida MMA scene.
Yes,
and we would be remiss if we did not talk about it.
I think I know what you're talking about.
On Inside Fighting Radio, there are multiple things going on, but
yes,
we will get to that later. You know why, guys? Because right now, on Inside Fighting Radio, we are joined by King Mo. How you doing today, King Mo?
Yeah, man, I'm good, man. Just chilling.
We appreciate your time. We got Coach George and Kenneth the Paparazzi Henrati, myself, Scott the Cube, and you know, we know May 12th. You've got Ryan Bader in front of you, Grand Prix heavyweight tournament. You guys are both two of the top light heavyweights in the world. Now you're fighting in the heavyweight Grand Prix tournament. First and foremost, your thoughts on that matchup with Ryan Bader?
That's really, you know, he's a big dude. You know, he can punch, he can wrestle, he can grapple. But one thing he lacks is the dog. He ain't get the dog in him. You know what I'm saying? He's a bully. You know what I'm saying? So if he knows he can get you out there, he's gonna bully you. You know what I'm saying? But if he has any doubt, he's gonna fight like a mouse.
And so you're expecting to be not expecting, you are saying you're going to be the dog in this fight, and he's lacking the dog. So, King Mo, I got the chance to hear John McCarthy talk about your fight a little bit, and he was talking about how you and Bader kind of match up similarly. You got the world-class wrestling backgrounds. You do have heavy hands, both of you. Both have knockouts in your career multiple times. He was expecting this to almost kind of play out like the famous Fry Takayama fight, where you guys are going to end up just standing and banging because the wrestling game will be negated. Could you see that fight basically going down exactly like that?
Man, if it goes like that, it's gonna be a bad night for Bader. He has, like, his hands aren't like mine.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, everyone's caught this whole, he fought in the UFC, he did this. Well, Volkov fought Bellator, and Volkov is about 2 fights away from being a fight for the belt. Same thing, Eddie Alvarez fought Bellator and winning the belt. You know what I'm saying? Then we have how many people that came from the UFC to Bellator, and you know what I'm saying? They had some success, not like how everyone thought they would. They had to realize it's the match and not the organization. And I'm telling you, man, I'm gonna punish Bader. I'm gonna punish him.
That's what I'm talking about.
I love it, man. Once again, we're talking to King Mo, Bellator star. Mo, you've had a great career, and you know, we could talk about the fight game all day, but I actually got the chance to meet you this weekend at a pro wrestling show. You were working with Josh Wood, I'm assuming a guy you've trained with multiple times, but I'd rather hear from you. What got you involved in Ring of Honor? That was really cool here in West Palm Beach Convention Center. You see this wrestling show, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, you got King Mo coming out. What led to that?
Well, I'm a big Ring of Honor fan. I love Ring of Honor. I've been watching Ring of Honor coming here for the past few years, and I've been watching them. I watched Ring of Honor when it used to be shown on TV here at midnight. I sit up and watch it. I watched Josh Woods win the prospect tournament a year ago.
Yep.
He came to the gym one time. I rolled with him. As a matter of fact, he actually submitted me one time with a leg lock. I didn't know he was that good, so I took him lightly. He locked up a leg lock, like a knee bar, and I attacked, and I was like, wow, it's okay. Because, you know, a lot of times when guys claim they have an MMA background or jiu-jitsu background, they don't. So I went in there taking lightly, and I realized this guy is legit. He would be a star. You saw his match, great match, well-spoken, good look, young kid, with the right organization. Because I feel like Ring of Honor is the premier organization as far as, like, talent. You see what WWE's done, they've scooped up a lot of Ring of Honor talent, you know what I'm saying? And those guys are showcasing skills right now. So I feel like Ring of Honor is the place to be.
Hey, too sweet, whoop whoop, man. Because that was pretty awesome to see you there, and also seeing you enjoy the show. You know, I mean, I'm a MMA guy. I mentioned to you briefly. You know, I worked with Joe Diesel Riggs for a very long time, but I love pro wrestling. So it's cool when you see world class fighters like you, one of the best fighters in the world, at a wrestling show and being like, "Hey, man, I love pro wrestling." So good stuff, brother. Appreciate that.
This is what you guys know. In America Top Team, we have about 2 or 3 wrestling shows a year. I wrestled Stevie Richards last year. Been on tease me. 2 years ago I wrestled Stevie Richards. 3 years ago I wrestled Ben the Action Ortiz. Last year at KingMo Mania, at America Top Team, it was me and Bobby Lashley versus Moose and Stephen Bonner. So we had a tag team match last year. So we're gonna do something big again this year. So I wrestle for Blueprint Wrestling, and I wrestle for the American Top Team Wrestling Organization as well. So
that's awesome.
I'm in the indie scene.
That's awesome. You know, real deal world class amateur wrestler and a real deal world class pro wrestler. That's great stuff. So, do you see yourself after the MMA career, after you win the Grand Prix and Bellator? Do you see yourself going to the WWE or even more importantly, Ring of Honor? Is that? Do you see yourself wrestling there eventually?
I would love to wrestle for Ring of Honor. I did TNA last year. I had steel cage match. Me and Bobby Lashley versus Moose and Stephen Bonner. If I would love to wrestle Ring of Honor. That'd be a dream of mine, because Ring of Honor has, I swear, they have the best talent. The Bucks, Marty Scurll, Dalton Castle, and them boys, the Briscoes. You see Billy Ray, Cheeseburger. You know, you see my boy Kenny King. You know what I'm saying? Caprice. Hey, we can't forget Gresham. Pressure Martinez. I can go on and on. Hey, Silas Young, the last real man. That's my guy right there, man. I mark out. I'm a mark when it comes to Ring of Honor. I'm a mark. I'm not gonna lie.
The Dem Boys, were those the fairies that were with Dalton Castle?
No, that's it. Them boys, the THEM. Them boys is the Briscoes.
Oh, the Briscoes were bad. That was the main event. That was an awesome main event. So, King Mo, that is great stuff, man. Really cool to see you're a pro wrestling guy.
Mo, this is Coach George. I want to take you back a little bit, man. I actually grew up in Plano, Texas, man. I see you wrestled there back in the day. I want to take you back to Plano. I saw that on your background, man. That's so cool.
Oh, yeah, man, Plano East High School. You went to Plano Senior High, or you were Plano East?
So, tell you what, I grew up on the east side and actually ended up going west and actually wrestled for Plano West. Graduated 07. So you know, you were ahead of me there by quite a bit. But I was supposed to go to east side, but then we ended up actually moving and ended up going to Plano West. But I saw that actually on here. I may have actually met a family member of yours. I remember him. I've lived in South Florida now 8 years. A relative of yours named Bull.
Yeah, it's my brother, Bull. Yeah, he went to Plano. It's crazy because I went to Plano East. He was at Plano, and he played basketball for Plano Senior High School. So yeah, Bull Abdullah is my brother.
Very cool. Yes, sir. I remember that. You know, I had the pleasure of he came by Title Boxing Club when I was working there in Dallas. We had a lot of mutual friends and training partners, and so I remember he was talking about you there. That's so cool to have you on the show here with us.
See, we're marking out now for you, King Mo. So he was super excited, man. He's like, "Whoa, hold on, this is from like my area." So that's good stuff.
King Mo, this is the paparazzi. How you doing today?
Hey, what's up, man? What's going on, paparazzi?
Thanks, man. Listen, I got a question for you. Listen, you know that Linton the Swarm Vassell fought Ryan Bader not too long ago.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do in your game plan that's different from what Linton did to stay away from Ryan?
Here's the thing. This to me, Linton is, I'm shorter than Linton. I have a wrestling background. Linton has no background in combat sports whatsoever. Linton had the wrong game plan. Linton went out there trying to wrestle, but when you watched the fight, when Linton was striking, he had success. As a matter of fact, Bader took him down. He got back to his feet. He let strikes, and then he tried to wrestle Bader. Bader hit with the laterals route. I watched that fight like 3 times. I remember it easy. And then second round, he then tried to wrestle again. Got taken down off the cage. He popped back up, got taken down again. Bader got controlled his legs, got fall, wrist ride, and then stopped him. You know, that's not me. First of all, I have better hands than Linton. If you watch the fight with me and Linton's first fight, if the cameras wasn't slippery, I would got him out there in the first round. Because the first I threw, I rocked him. Then when I finished, I was flipping, and we were just taking turns falling down. I dropped him about 3 or 4 times that round. You know what I'm saying? But if the canvas wasn't slippery, because now Bellator has new canvas finally. If the canvas wasn't slippery, I would have stopped him in the first round.
Do you hear that, paparazzi?
Yes, I do.
He's a different beast.
Yes, he
is.
is.
This is King Mo we're talking about over here.
That's right.
And let's think about Bader, right? With me, I fight guys bigger. Everyone's like Mo, Bader. I fight everybody. I never showed no cowardice.
True.
When you watch, look, Rumble Johnson. If I fight Rumble Johnson, I'm gonna not win. I might win. Who knows? But you know this, I wouldn't pull guard. You fight John Jones, pull guard. What wrestler pulls guard? I check. You go to your back as a wrestler, you get pinned.
Yep.
You will not see me on my back unless I get taken down. Guess what? Back to my feet. I'm gonna keep my hands. I'm a dog. Like, I'm not no bully. I go out there and fight you. I fight everybody the same. Bader is different. He's the type of guy. If he knows he can go out there and bully you, he will. But the moment show resistance, just go watch the Alir Latifi fight. He changed in that fight. He can go out there and bully Alir. Came at him, and then Bader turned into a different fighter.
And we're going to find out May 12th. Once again, Grand Prix, Bellator MMA. If you missed it this past weekend, Fedor took out Mir. And now on May 12th, we're going to see King Mo versus Ryan Bader. And King Mo saying it, I am a different beast. Hey, King, we appreciate your time, man. And for all the fans listening, what can they expect to see come May 12th?
Man, you can see my knuckles all in Bader's eyes, nose, and jaw.
Yeah.
King, we appreciate it, man. Good luck, and hope to get you back on here soon.
Oh, yeah, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, you got it. King Mo.
Thanks, King Mo.
And once again, May 12th in Bellator, you're going to see his knuckles, fist all up in Bader's face. Now, full disclosure. I've trained with Ryan Bader, no-gi jiu-jitsu on at least 3-4 different occasions. Doesn't say much other than I've actually been in that room with him, felt his jiu-jitsu game, and it was at that point, it was about 3 years ago, that he started doing the gi more seriously and started taking the gi more seriously. He had just been promoted to purple belt, and he was one of the most fierce people I've ever rolled with. So my roll with him, just to give you a quick little Ryan Bader story.
Yeah.
The first roll we did, we went for about 5 minutes, and it was a flow roll.
Nice.
And you don't talk about what happened in training, but I only got tapped once in 5 minutes of Ryan Bader. So then you go with somebody else, and then you go with another person. Well, I rolled with someone else, and it might have been Jimmo, who was my co-host at the time on my old radio show, Ryan Jimmo, the late, great Ryan Jimmo. And then all of a sudden, I'm done with Jimmo, and I hear, hey, Scott, you want to go again? It was Bader.
Ooh.
And you want to think that maybe he went from 25% to maybe 30 to 40%, turned it up just that much, and he tapped me about 5 times, 6 times in 5 minutes.
Oh, wow.
And that was me battling him, like, but it was cool, man. It made me, number one, it made me feel like I belonged in the room, right?
Right,
Like
right.
I wasn't a joke.
Right.
I didn't embarrass myself. I trained with high-level guys in the past, but to be able to go against a guy like Ryan Bader and just get that little bit of respect at that moment,
Right. Feels
that was
good.
all I needed. That was it. And then he put it on me. And once again, it wasn't at him at 100. It was him about maybe 40, 45%. And we're going to see him at 100 come May 12th. No doubt about it. We're going to see King Mo at 100 come May 12th. And that is just insane. Listen, we are up against it, but we got to talk about some of the craziness going on in the Florida MMA scene. So 2 minutes remaining, but got to put the information out there. Former Bellator fighter, Alexis Villa.
Yeah.
Former Olympic medalist. One of the baddest dudes. 11 straight fights he had won, 7 of them by knockouts, and he knocked out Joe Warren. He has been arrested for murder.
What?
From back in 2011. So and he's not the only one. Ariel Gandula, another local fighter. Ariel Gandula also is on the run and wanted for being involved in the murder. So allegedly, I believe the last name was Marin. He runs Presidente Supermarkets.
Yeah.
And his wife supposedly had an affair, allegedly had an affair. And they hired Alexis Villa, who then hired Gandula and another person. And now they're all under arrest. Gandula's on the run, and Alexis Villa has been arrested. Cedric James,
Wow.
0-7 as a pro fighter. Cedric James, 0-7. Not the best MMA fighter.
Oh, yeah, 0-7.
Based out of Florida, arrested for murder in Miami. So Couple of murder stories coming out of our lovely, sunny South Florida area.
I'm sorry, America.
Yeah, sorry for the black mark that unfortunately it does put on, because it happens all walks of life, and it just happens to be a really bad week for Florida MMA. But it's been a great week for Inside Fighting Radio.
It sure has.
Of course, once again, presented by Phoenix Fight Gear. You go to phoenixfightgear.com, you put in IFR20 for Inside Fighting Radio, and you will get 20% off all of your gear, courtesy of your friends, right here at Inside Fighting Radio. We had an amazing show. Gilbert Durinho Burns. That guy is a future champion in my mind. He looks like he's fighting Neil Magny. We got some breaking news right here at Inside Fighting Radio. Awesome. Really appreciate him coming on. And, of course, we had on top of that, we had our boy, King Mo.
King Mo.
Great stuff, great show. And for our boys here in the studio, Kenneth the Paparazzi and Roddy, Coach George Adamia, the Cube, Scott Lewis. We do this every week right here on Inside Fighting Radio.